Dan Schwartzman of 98.7 ESPN in New York joining us. And we'll start with Landry Fields leaving the New York Knicks to take his talents up to Toronto. I think that this is a big loss for them because he's only been in the league a few years. He does have some upside, but throughout the playoffs he wasn't a great performer, and they still do have some younger guys like Iman Shumpert who tore his ACL in the playoffs. So it's a loss, but how big of a loss is it?
No, I mean, Landry Fields is a nice player, but he's not worth 3 years and $20 million. What ended up happening there, Tim, was the Toronto Raptors really wanted Steve Nash, and they knew the Knicks wanted Steve Nash, and they knew the Knicks were going to center a trade involving Landry Fields to Phoenix to make the money work and to get that deal done, because Phoenix was the other team that really liked Landry Fields on draft night when the Knicks took Fields in the second round. So probably the most ridiculous offer, 3 years, $19 million, but it's not worth it. He wilted in the playoffs 2 years against the Celtics. Last year in crunch time, they didn't show up again. I think the Knicks fans should point out, the guy that you're talking about is Iman Shumpert, who the Knicks love. He was the first round pick last year. He bore his ACL during the playoffs. Iman Shumpert is a real stud. And Jalen Rose, also the ESPN, has come out and said publicly that in 3 years he may be the best player on the Knicks. That includes Amari Stoudemire, Tyson Chandler, and of course Carmelo Anthony. So, you know, the Knicks are okay with that, and they're okay with losing Landry Fields, so they also brought back J.R. Smith recently.
Fields is a good player, but like you said, it would have been nice to keep him in the fold, but 3 years, $19 or $20 million, he probably was not going to be worth that. The Knicks last week did sign Jason Kidd. They were able to get him away from the Dallas Mavericks, and a lot of people are talking about how the Knicks are in a win-now mode, and that maybe that would be the motive behind not bringing back a Jeremy Lin, because that might be a little bit more work, and bringing in a Raymond Felton, bringing in a Jason Kidd. In the end, if they were to lose, let's just say Jeremy Lin and Landry Fields, and pick up Raymond Felton and Jason Kidd, would you consider that a productive offseason?
Yes, I think they're a better team, and you also know the fact they brought in Marcus Camby as well. So I think overall the Knicks are a better team, but I think Jeremy Lin's an asset you have to bring back. He's still an unknown, but what he showed last year, limited play, is he's capable of potentially being a very good player. You can't let a guy like that walk, but with Jason Kidd here, he's an improvement over Mike Bibby and Baron Davis. No one's going to argue that. With Raymond Felton here, he's better than those two guys anyway. But the thinking is, when you bring in Marcus Camby to replace Jared Jeffries, that's a huge upgrade when Tyson Chandler needs a breather, because they're very similar types of players. So yes, overall, I think the Knicks are a better team now than at the end of last year.
Mike Woodson came in late last season and did a pretty solid overall job at not only getting the players to play better offensively, but demanding guys like Carmelo Anthony step it up on the defensive end. Do you believe that that will hold still through this entire season, or was that just kind of like he got on him for a little bit and that made him work, but it's not going to be a long-term type deal with Carmelo Anthony and a few other guys on the Knicks playing aggressive defense?
That's a valid question, and I don't really have the answer for that, because Carmelo was very motivated with Mike Woodson, and he enjoyed playing for Mike Woodson. But we understand he vouched for Mike Woodson in the offseason to come back. So Carmelo seems to be Carmelo played defense last year for Mike Woodson, something he never did in his career. So Mike Woodson also was very successful last year. In the last 24 games for Mike Woodson, they were 18-6, which I believe was the best record for those 24 games. So Mike Woodson certainly got the most out of his players. Now, does that continue? I don't know. It's a very good question. And I think for Carmelo Anthony, he was showing a lot of maturity this offseason. As soon as LeBron James won, what did he say? He said, it's my turn now. So he's put a lot of pressure on himself, and he realizes he's the guy in that draft class who doesn't have a ring. So I think for Carmelo, there's a lot of motivation to play along and really be a part of what Mike Woodson is preaching. So I do think he's a different player. I think he's a more mature player, and I do expect him to really kind of continue where he left off last year, playing both on defense and offense, and just being somebody that is capable of doing more than being a one-dimensional scorer, which he did for his whole career.
Dan Schwartzman of 98.7 ESPN joining us here on The Real Sports Talk. The final question, everything pretty much that could have gone wrong in the playoffs last year for the Knicks did. Everyone knows Shumpert tore his ACL. You had Amari Stoudemire punch a fire extinguisher and have the hand lacerations. But it's been a pretty productive offseason so far, especially if they are able to keep Jeremy Lin. But they add Jason Kidd, Raymond Felton, and then you mentioned Marcus Camby. With a lot of questions in the East, besides the Heat, there really isn't a team next year with Derrick Rose injured for the foreseeable future. Some questions about the Pacers and a few other teams. The Celtics lose Ray Allen. Where do the Knicks seem to fit into this Eastern Conference next season?
I think the interesting team's going to be the Nets. You left them out, but I think the Nets are a team that's vastly improved, and I'm still not going to sit here and tell you that they're totally out of the Dwight Howard sweepstakes, considering Dwight Howard said some team is on a long-term contract with. I think the Knicks right now probably around 4 or 5 teams in the Eastern Conference, and it's better than last year, but overall, I think a lot's going to depend on the Nets, and if the Nets are really for real or not, because the Nets are a better team than what we expect, then they're going to be out of the Knicks as well. I just think overall, there's a lot that can go right for the Knicks, or a lot that can go wrong for the Knicks. If Carmelo and Amari still don't learn how to play on the same page, then the Knicks could be in a lot of trouble. But if they do figure out how to play together, they're going to put up 50 points combined a game, so they're going to be quite the team. So it just really kind of depends on those two guys getting along. If they can't get along, then obviously I think the Knicks are going to be a much more improved team.
All right, Dan Schwartzman, you can hear him on 98.7 ESPN in New York. Dan, thanks a lot for joining us.
Anytime, Tim.